Uh,
Look at that
there we go.
thing like magic. Hey, good evening, everyone. Rob Creed here, your friendly neighborhood union president. I am proud to be here with you guys tonight to talk about our agreement and then going into ratification starting tomorrow. I'm joined here with our executive director, Britt Wegman, who's done a great job for us at the table. We have several staff members with us tonight. We have Regina Gambrell, our vice president, is here, as well as Valerie Chuchman, our secretary treasurer. So just briefly on a couple of announcements, we have a pretty heavy duty newsletter that went out a little while ago. It gives just a couple of pointers on certainly on the ratification that's going to be coming. We're going to talk about that tonight, as well as some pointers about social media and all of the different concerns that members have been bringing to us since they got the email from the commissioner last week. Remember, we will protect all of our members everywhere we can with books, with doors being open, and certainly with social media. So we appreciate you guys being members. And again, thank you for being here tonight. Britt, you can run through these things. So we have starting tomorrow at noon, you will get an email around contract ratification where you get to vote on that which we have already negotiated. And then once we get through that, it will go to school board approval on the 30th. And then we will talk about it obviously at our next rep council, which is Thursday, October 9th. Please don't forget that rep council is not only for reps, but for members. Reps are our voting body, but members are always welcome. We have snacks, we have information. We try to make it a very meaningful, powerful meeting each and every month. So if you have not attended a rep council, I recommend and I invite you to join us here at the HCTA headquarters for one of those meetings. Thank you. Our next slide. I've been out at lots of schools talking to members, talking to potential members. The saddest thing is when somebody calls us and talks about the trouble that they're having. They're getting called to OPS, they're getting reported by parents, and they call us and right away they want us to help them. And when you are a member, we get you the protection that you need right away and the legal representation when appropriate. But it's always hard when somebody is asking for help and truly we cannot give it. And we cannot, the lawyers will not help non-members, and we can't get you that legal representation if you're not a member. Just like you can't buy flood insurance when your house is 3 feet underwater. That's a problem that we're having with people that were members, that people that want to be members. So please talk to your potential members at your site around that in itself, in a world where things are a little bit more challenging than ever before. And I mentioned that in the newsletter. Please, membership is important for the protection, but then also for what we're fighting for. And, the one thing as we get into ratification and the agreement that we have, I want to be very clear to every member like I was at Rep Council. What we've done here is still not enough for everybody that's on this call. You guys work hard, you guys do amazing work, and you guys are giving everything you can to meet the needs of kids. And you are underpaid in a state where we are underfunded, and I could argue that we are being defunded as we speak. Collectively, we're going to continue to fight for public schools because we know that that's what our communities want. We know that that's what our students need, and we need your help with that. So membership is more important than ever before. And the experts that have gotten in here, and Britt's going to really get into the X's and O's of how we made this happen, but we got 4 times what they were willing to bring to the table. Without HCTA, this agreement would be way slimmer than what it's going to look like to you tonight. So again, everybody deserves more, and we're going to continue to fight for more with your help. But we're happy about that. We're able to get more out of this district than other local unions are doing, and what's happening across the state. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Britt, who's going to kind of lead us through some of these slides and telling us what's going on. Thank you, Britt.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So I just want to start off by saying that, we always put out a pretty extensive survey before we go into bargaining. And sometimes we get some folks that are like, oh, it's too much, but we do it for a reason so that we can really determine, the issues and the interests that are out there. This year, I'm really pleased because we had double the participation from 2024. We had over 2,200 members respond to both our instructional and ESP bargaining surveys. And combined, I mean, told the story that we all know and as far as an interest related to that is just resources to meet the cost of living. And of course, compensation for class coverage, because we know there are extreme vacancies here in Hillsborough. And I see I've got stability on my internet, so I'll try to catch up if I break up or anything. I also wanted to point out that our bargaining team did some training in March of 2025 to get ready for this, and that included kind of talking about budget and talking about contract language and those sorts of things, because our ESP team, our ESP committee led by Regina Gambrell, our vice president, did a lot of meeting throughout the year leading up to full book negotiations, which we also accomplished this year. So I'm gonna work through what I'm gonna do is I am gonna go in detail through each economic agreement for each unit when we get into what the contract language says, especially for our ESP, since there's a lot. We had over 40 agreements that improve the contract. Regina's gonna kind of highlight some of the things that are important, but all of this is out there for employees to review. So I think at the very tippy top, we see effective July 1, 2025. This means that it's retro, that our instructional support, those are our ESP employees, paras, and paraprofessional and clerical unit employees, shall have an updated salary schedule. The base pay increased by 0.25%, which is a little bit of an increase to the overall salary schedule. And then also with that, effective July 1, 2025, so retroactive, all employees in the ESP bargaining unit that are eligible shall be credited with 1 year of experience, which means everybody gets their level step movement on their respective pay grade. And eligibility means that you must have worked half plus a day, that's half the year plus a day, and have an effective evaluation. And that's always been our standard in both the ESP and the instructional unit. For those employees who are at the top of their respective pay grade, so if you're at, I believe that's step or level 24, that means if you don't get that additional step, you receive a $2,000 longevity payment. And again, that eligibility is based on working half a year plus a day and having that effective evaluation just as it is for the step. Now we get into some regradings, and the regrading, I'll talk, we'll summarize this later, but around half of the ESP unit also will be receiving a regrade. A regrade means that if you are on pay grade 15, you will move on their salary schedule. It kind of looks like it's down, but you're getting an additional raise of approximately, in some cases it's 5%. It depends on where you are on the scale. But that's an additional regrade. So effective July 1, 2025, this means it's retro. All employees on pay grade 15 shall be regraded to pay grade 16. Additionally, we have a regrade for our Secretary 1, which is job code 50110. They will be regraded from pay grade 16 to pay grade 17. Additionally, our bilingual aides, kindergarten assistants, and micrographics clerks who are on pay grade 17 will be regraded to pay grade 18. Our data processors and registrars who are on pay grade 20 will be regraded to pay grade 21. And our registered nurses who are on pay grade 34 will be regraded to pay grade 35. Our licensed practical nurses will be regraded from pay grade 26 to pay grade 27. And our paraprofessional 3s will be regraded from pay grade 20 to pay grade 21. And our office network computer specialists will be regraded from pay grade 26 to pay grade 27. So what this means for all of these regraded positions, your base pay will increase by 0.25%. You will move your step. So if you're on step 2, you'll go to step 3. And if you are one of these regraded job positions, you will move from your pay grade, let's say pay grade 20, to pay grade 21 on that same step. So regrade does not mean that you don't get the step, you get it all. Additionally, for the 25-26 school year, we're working on developing an MOU for highly qualified ESPs. And Regina will talk a little bit about this too, and we'll have a list that are highly qualified ESPs. It doesn't have to do with evaluation. It has to do with the definition from the state and federal statutes, who are assigned what we're now calling designated schools of need, which we'll go over a list later, will be paid a salary differential of $750 for the, this should be 25-26 school year. I should correct that real quickly if I can get on there and do that. That's a typo. So that is for this current this current school year. We fixed that. Also, retaining the board, covering the cost of fingerprint monitoring fees for all ESPs, and the board will continue to pay the full cost of an employee-only health insurance premium for a designated health plan. So the total compensation package for ESPs alone is $4.3 million. And as I said, it's retroactive to July 1, 2025. Now that's got to get ratified by employees and approved by the board. And then we will, I know the big question will always be, when do we see it? And we will be in touch with the district and payroll on when those will actually be implemented. As I said, approximately half of the 3,700 ESP bargaining unit employees will have that regrade. And it was on the record with our team, and Danielle Shotwell, the chief negotiator for the district, recognized the importance of prioritizing the other employees that aren't receiving the pay grade regrade this year to focus as our top priority for next year. It's also important to just remember that HCTA secured that clear contractually legally binding MOU for millage payments, which have already started. Employees are already seeing that in their paycheck. Those started July 1, and that was secured ahead of those funds becoming available to the district. Remember, the taxes are typically collected around November, December. The district won't see those until the next calendar year in early January, February of 2026. Before I go into the contractual language agreements, I don't know, Regina, if there's anything I needed to add as far as economics, and we'll have a Q&A at the end for anything that may seem confusing or have questions about. Right. I'm going to keep moving on then. Hopefully everyone can still hear me. So just to kind of look at these salary schedules, the way to look at this and the way to kind of figure out your raise is you look at the current salary schedule for ESPs, and this is found in Appendix C of the current salary schedule on our website, and the district also has it, is you find your current pay grade. So if you are an employee on pay grade 15, making at step 2, making $15.34 an hour, you would take that and multiply that by the number of hours you work. So you could be an 8-hour employee or a 7.5-hour employee, and then you multiply that number by the number of days that you work, 196, 205, 253, depending on if you're a 10-month or 12-month employee. And that will give you your overall salary. So if we're taking that example of that employee on pay grade 15, step 2 at 1534, you will then move yourself to pay grade 16, step 3 at $15.92 an hour. And then you can multiply those numbers again, that 1592 times your number of hours you work times the number of days you work, and then you can figure out your salary difference. And we've got these documents out there for you to look at. And if you need help with that, you can call our office. Our staff can help. You're able to look at your pay stub to find your pay grade, and we can help you find that too out of our office. I know this is a lot here and I'm not going to read through all of them, but this is just to kind of work out and give an example of how that works. So our data processors, and I did this with an 8-hour, 253 day. This is the second example from the bottom. And we know we have some data processors at our elementary schools that work a different amount of days, so you'd have to adjust that. But the data processor who's on pay grade 20 right now at level 1 has a current base pay of $16.5612 per hour. So they would multiply that hourly rate by 8 hours and then multiply that by the 253. So that gives you a base salary of $33,520. That the proposed agreement, if ratified, this employee would move to pay grade 21, step 2 or level 2, and move to $17.3157 an hour. So that hourly rate is multiplied by 8. It's multiplied by the 253 days to give a new salary of $35,108. That's an increase of $1,588 or 4.5%. And we've prepared salary schedules also for the instructional side that illustrate the impact of the millage that employees are already receiving. So an 8-hour a day, 253-day data processor receives an additional $1.48 per hour raise. So their total salary raise for this school year is $4,588, which is 14%. So this document with a lot of these examples is there, but again, we can help you work through that if you want to look up what you've made. Now I'm going to kind of ask Regina to help me I hope she's here and can hear me and can kind of,
Yes,
she's going to work. There's a lot of contractual agreements, but I've asked her to kind of highlight some of these as we walk through them so we don't have to read them all. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Regina, and you just let me know when you're ready for the next slide.
thank you. I'm sorry. I think you couldn't hear me. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
And I know Regina's having some technical issues with her camera, so that's why she's not visible, but she's here. All
Definitely. And
right.
so as we look at the first slide, on this slide, I'd like to point out um 5.1.2, which allows the documentation of the parapro assessment from other public school districts. Um, to convert over to our school district. So that is something that did not exist before, and now it definitely exists where you can get that experience that you've had at a previous district, and that testing score, over to Hillsborough County. Um, Another one of a kind of big one, 5.1.10, is just clarification on the language granting ESP school business time during their workday to complete any testing, qualifying, or interviewing that you're doing for HCPS positions when requested. Before, I know we had to use our personal time in order to be able to do that. So those are some big wins on this slide. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
On this slide, one of the big wins is as of July 2025, rehired retirees shall be granted all of their years of verified experience credit. An example would be before this was added to the contract, or going to be added to the contract once it's ratified. But before, an employee could be on step 24, but when they come back, they would have to start on step 15 on whatever grade they're on. And then so this allows our retirees that decide to come back to help us and join our team again to be put right back on step 24, the same step that whatever step it is that they left off on. Um, a big one for Another big one on this slide, let's see, would be the granting of the seven years experience, and that'll be for clerical, paraprofessionals, as well as our nurses. And so HCPS will now go back and there'll be a new form coming out. So we'll definitely keep you guys informed, and we can have an in-person workshop as well to help out with completing it. But making sure that we go back and get all of your years of experience, which would turn out to be more steps. So more money, more raises, and you get the experience that you've had before you come to Hillsborough County Public Schools. There are some not necessarily stipulations, but prepare professional in all the positions. They'll just have to be reviewed by the district. So making sure that start beefing up your resume so you're ready for that. Um, and then we can move forward to the next slide. On this slide, one of the most important ones to me is changing the career observation to performance support plan to align as well with our sister union, HSEF. But it definitely sounds a lot better. So per on the performance support plan, it sounds more like a, a group working together, with your principal to get whatever it is, whatever issue or concern that may be going on. So performance support plan, it's a new wording on that. And that's the next one. Okay. On this slide, 17.7.1 clarifies where ESPs can request conference convention workshop during their normal workday, and with approval to be considered as temporary assignment to duty elsewhere. It's quite a few on this one. On this
Yeah.
one, 17.16.1, any ESP that's planning to complete their bachelor's degree could only get a 1 year or 12-month educational leave. As long as you can show that you're, progressing towards that bachelor's degree, you have the opportunity to submit for an extension for an additional 12 months. returning to the pool. But after that, you'll have your bachelor's degree. So we'd hope that you be moving into a teacher's position. 18.2.2, this just expands how we can get comp time. Before it was kind of just like conference night, or open house. And so this includes any student parent engagement activities that you're approved for by your administrator. And so whenever you guys have those STEM nights coming up, or any other type of student parent engagement events that you definitely like to attend, be sure to reach out to your administrator and let them know and get the approval before you stay. And that way you'd be able to take advantage of that comp time as well. Um, and that actually concludes all of those updates. I did want to go back, Britt, because I know we mentioned the highly qualified and something was wrong with my mic, but I do have where the list of positions that qualifies, and we can go ahead and get that out. But for the most part, any position that requires a associate's degree or higher, or requires that you complete 60 semester hours or 2 hours of study, or that you receive a 457 or higher on the para-pro test, would automatically qualify you. And then, and then we have our support paraprofessionals that do not require those additional education pieces. And that's a big range actually. So I'll name a few. So to include our ESE pairs for sure, our bilingual pairs, our health assistants, our migrant aides, migrant recruiters. It'll also include our Head Start aides, our parent liaisons, any teacher adult aides in the classroom that do not require those additional education pieces. And again, we'll have this document put on our website so that you can check to ensure that you're qualified for that.
Okay. Thanks, Regina. So there's definitely a lot in when we look at the contract language. So our ESPs, our para unit and clerical unit, make sure you review the full list, the full summary, and check those out in the contract. And of course, if you have any questions, the ratification will be open Tuesday, tomorrow, all the way through September 26th. So that's 10 days. So there's plenty of time if you have questions to contact us and ask any questions or clarifying. All right, so I'm going to move into the instructional economic tentative agreement and walk through the economic agreement pretty detailed. And then we'll get into, I know there's questions, I've already seen them about Renaissance and schools of need and all of that. So very similar and very close to what we did for our ESPs, effective July 1, 2025. So this is retroactive. All the instructional salary schedules agreed upon shall be updated and included in Appendix C of the collective bargaining agreement. So that's Schedule E, G, P, and Q, as well as all of our 3, 6, 9 student services salary schedules. And we'll go over what those increases look like. And then also effective July 1, so this is retro, employees in the instructional bargaining unit shall also be credited with their 1 year of experience to advance 1 step on the respective salary schedule. And again, eligibility, you must have worked half a year plus a day and have an effective or higher evaluation for the 24-25 school year. Also effective July 1, 2025, employees at the top of their salary schedule. So if you're not receiving that step increase, you will receive the one-time top step payment of $2,000 as an additional payment to employee-based pay. And this payment, like last year, will be made no later than the end of that first semester. And eligibility, again, requires that you must have worked half a year plus a day and effective evaluation for the 24-25 school year. And I know there were some questions about FRS eligibility. This payment is absolutely under statute required and eligible for FRS. Since you don't receive a step increase, it's part of your base pay. Additionally, effective July 1, our licensed school psychologists, nationally certified school psychologists, licensed mental health counselors, licensed SLPs, licensed audiologists, licensed school social worker, licensed mental health clinicians, licensed OTPTs or certified behavior analyst. So if you hold any of these, even if you hold a combination of two, you will be eligible for a one-time $750 payment. So I just want to be clear here. If you have two of these licenses, you will still only be eligible for one payment. So this is maintaining a payment that we secured last year for these licensed student services positions. Also effective July 1, 2025, are eligible SLPs and audiologists who hold their ASHA Cs shall also be paid the one-time additional payment of $1,500, and that's paid at the conclusion of the 25-26 school year. You must have worked half a year plus a day and be current and an active employee at the time of payment. When we get to our ESE instructional employees, this is the ESE supplement that we've had for the last couple of years, and we'll go over those job codes after this, as well as all instructional employees at our exceptional centers, which includes Caminiti, Carver, Dorothy Thomas, Eisenhower, Lavoie, Lopez, and Peters and Simmons, sorry. And our school psychologists will receive the additional one-time ESE critical shortage supplement. And I think it's important to note here that the district was actually trying to roll this amount back, and we were able to maintain it at the 1,500. For our exceptional centers, this is all inclusive. You don't have to only be an instructional on the job code list. This includes our student services, anyone who's assigned there at the ESE center. And I'll point out here, I know sometimes we get some questions when we look at the job codes and lists that are eligible for this. Our ESPs also used to get a one-time payment, but last year we were able to successfully negotiate a regrade, which is permanent. So that's not just a one-time payment. So our employees that are ESPs who were getting a supplement as a one-time payment have now been permanently regraded. So that's why you don't see the continuation of a supplement, because it's already in the base pay. Number 7, this has to do with our national board certified teachers are eligible to receive the $1,000 additional payment for completion of the 10 hours of approved mentoring and or conducting approved training through the professional learning department. And that eligibility comes up once you've submitted all of your required documentation, and you must be an active and current employee at the time of payment. Our national board certified teachers who are in our transformation network schools, as well as the designated schools of need, which we will go over, will also receive the one-time $4,500 additional payment that is paid no later than the conclusion of the 25-26 school year. And so this is important just to understand that we've maintained this, and just to be intentional about it, that this is included for those two categories of schools. Also, we were able to continue in accordance with the contract that for this school year, any instructional unit employee assigned to substitute during their planning time, choosing to be compensated rather than comp time, will be paid at the rate of $20 per hour. So you can earn a little extra money there in lieu of comp time. For the 25-26 school year, we're gonna talk about the highly qualified teachers as defined by state and federal statute, which has to do with your evaluation score, who are assigned to designated schools of need, which we will look at the list, will be paid a salary differential of $2,000. Eligibility is determined by that effective or higher evaluation rating and your certification. And the parties agreed to develop this MOU. So we're going to go over this, but this is where we're talking when we get questions about what's going on with Renaissance pay. This is what was negotiated with our Renaissance pay issue. And also for instructional unit, we will continue the coverage of the board will continue to pay the full cost of an employee health insurance premium for the designated health plan offered by the board. And the board will continue to cover the cost of fingerprint monitoring fees. So the total compensation package totals $34 million, and the agreement is retroactive to July 1. And again, just noting here that HCTA, we secured the contractual agreement for millage payment for instructional employees, which have already started. So here is the list of job codes eligible for the ESE retention payment, the critical shortage for the ESE $1,500 payment. So these are the job codes. They're the same as they were last year. And then again, including all instructional employees assigned to our ESE exceptional centers. And again, this is in the agreement. You'll be able to see that list in the contract. So for getting into designated schools of need, so those of you that have questions about Renaissance pay, I'm going to pass it over to Val to kind of give us a summary here and talk through this.
Hey, good evening. As you may or may not know, the district has been trying to discontinue Renaissance schools over the last few years. We recognize that there are schools that don't quite fit into the transformation network, but they still need extra support. So instead of just discontinuing that support from Renaissance schools, we proposed a Schools of Need MOU, and we included all of the Renaissance schools. Now, back in the day, in a galaxy far, far away, Renaissance schools were identified only based on free and reduced lunch. The schools of need are also going to include performance metrics. So, some schools that were previously Renaissance are no longer included in this schools of need list. And that's because those schools have improved their performance by earning an A or B grade, so they no longer meet this criteria. That's something to be proud of. It shows the impact of your hard work and your students' growth. But at the same time, we understand that the financial piece is real. If you are concerned about losing this supplement, we will support you. We can help connect you with a designated school in need or a transformation network school where your skills are valued and in high demand. So the ultimate goal here is to see our schools improve and to make sure that every member has the support they need professionally and financially. And as you can see, that's our list for the schools of need. Looking at those with grades C or below. We had some that were added, and there you go. That's what I got.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Before I get into the salary scales too, I know I've seen some things come across the chat that I wanted to also highlight before we actually get into the instructional scales. Some language pieces that didn't really fall in the economic agreement, but are in the contract have to do with the summer learning program. That rate had been fixed at a fixed rate of $27 per hour. We were able to secure an 11% increase there, and that pay has increased now to $30 per hour. We were also able to add a student services team leader supplement, and I'm trying frantically to pull up the amount of that supplement. I think it's around $848. And then we also were able to increase the ESE contact supplement from that 800, I think approximately, let me look it up really quick just to be very specific. Ooh. And again, this is all in the summary. It's all there. Yeah, let me get it here. Application packet. While I'm looking that up, I'll also note that we also secured for the instructional unit the granting of all years of experience for our rehired retirees. So that was additional money to employee pay. So the way that works is if you're an employee that was brought in at step 15, because that was the limitation of rehired retiree experience credit, you will be moved to your, so if you came in with 30 years of experience and you should be at the top of the scale, but you're on 15, you'll move to the top. You will be retroed to July 1. They're not able to go back and pay all the years that they may have missed prior, if you were hired in years past, but you will be corrected. All right, so the student services team leader supplement is $848.77. That was the same amount that the ESE contact team lead supplement was, and that's been increased to $1,120.01 for our ESE contact. Before I move on to the salary scales, I see Rob in the wings. Is there something I needed to add here?
No, I'm seeing questions about whether some of these things are FRS eligible, and that would be your Florida retirement system. So, and Britt, you could go into deeper detail if you like, but we're taking the district to arbitration over this issue to clarify what is FRS eligible and what is not. And if you're out there saying, well, what is that? What are we really talking about? That would be those employees that are working within the FRS system and not the investment plan, that when you're getting ready to retire, they average your top 5 years of salary to calculate what you would make with your pension. So we always try to get every single possible dollar that we can as FRSable, if I'm going to make it a verb. And so we're having an issue with the district, and we have an arbitration case going.
Yeah. And just to kind of put some like perspective on that, our position is that was a contractual agreement, that the language is clear that these payments were supplements to employee-based pay. We believe that the district understood that pretty clearly on the record. But we're having some trouble now after the fact of, their position now is that, well, it's non-recurring, so it's more like a bonus, even though we were all very clear it was not taxed as a bonus. So what we had to do was file a grievance, and we've not been able to resolve that. So right now we are at the level 4, which is a demand for arbitration. And right now we're literally just in the process of trying to pick an arbitrator. And if you're familiar with arbitration, this could take 6 months or more to schedule a hearing. So this is not something that's going to be resolved quickly through a legal proceeding. But we have been diligent. I've had a conversation with the superintendent. We just met last week about this to try to get more information from the district to just really help us understand what's the hold up here. And if we can't agree on the language, then that's the point of the arbitrator. So it's going to be time, but we haven't given up on that, and we're trying to resolve it. The goal would be to resolve it without having to go to arbitration in 6 months or longer, depending on the schedule of the arbitrator. Because even once you have a hearing, it could be another month and a half, 2 months before we get a position on that. So stay tuned on that. But I will say that top level longevity payment. So if you did not get that step movement, that is absolutely clear and undeniable. The district is not denying that top step longevity, like again, if you're at the top step and you don't get movement, that longevity payment is FRS eligible. All right, so let's look at the scales a little bit here. These documents have been shared out, so you can kind of look at this and look at your respective pay scale. I only pulled an example of the 10-month and the 12-month salary schedules. So the way these work is when you look all the way at the left and kind of the gray and tan, that's the current 24-25 scale. So you would find your amount, whatever your step is on, and then you would move to the green and give yourself one step movement. And so what we were able to do was secure the step and add $350 to the base pay. So for example, if you were on step E12 making $55,390, you would move to E13 in the green to $57,075. Your total increase in base pay is $1,685, which is just under a 3% or around 3% increase. And what we've done is in the gray all the way to the right is we've also implemented and shown what the impact of the millage increase is. So again, if you're moving from E14 to E14 at a base pay of $58,060, and you go to E15 with your step, your base salary raise, and your millage payment, your total salary will increase to $65,745, which is a 13% increase. So these scales are here, and I'm not going to be able to go through every single piece, but they're here for you to research, and our staff will be available if you're having trouble figuring that out and need help looking up what you make currently. So this is the 10-month. This would be the E and the P salary schedule. And then we have our 12-month salary schedules, G and Q, and the equivalent for the 12-month scale is a $447 base pay increase. So again, you'd look at what you're making now, you'd move yourself to the green, up a step to figure out what your base salary raise is, and then you can look all the way to the right to look at your millage payment. So these are our 12-month employees. We then also improved our student services schedule. So you'll be able to look at, a lot of our employees are on the 198 master's degree pay scale. So the same thing there. What I want to point out here, the past 2 years, we've had to negotiate a one-time payment for steps 20 through 25 to maintain a separation from the instructional scales with advanced degree supplements. What we were able to do this year was to permanently add that $1,000 into base pay. So those amounts have now been added to the base pay. We've improved all these schedules. This is an example of the master's degree on the 205-day student services scale. Same thing here. You can look at your rate on the left in the gray, you move to the green, and then all the way to the right would be your total overall compensation increase for 25-26. We also have our specialist degree, 205-day scale, and these are just the 3 student services scale with the most of our employees, several hundred on each of these scales. I know there are a few people that are on a few different ones, and all those scales are available on our website. We also sent them out in the newsletter today. All right, so just kind of in summary before we get into questions and kind of our final thoughts, I think like to echo what Rob said about, the base increases are unfair. Our team held out and we made our budget presentations. We've looked at everything. And it's the problem in Florida is that the funding for public schools continues to make those raises unfair and behind the cost of living. We're the 50th in the nation for the 2nd year in a row when it comes to average teacher pay. And just to be clear, they do that because they're focusing mostly on teachers, but we know our lawmakers and those in charge just don't even consider our ESPs at the lawmaking decision-making level. The base student allocation, which are the funds that are available for salary increases each year, was only increased by 0.78%, so not even a true COLA. And that only equated to about $10.5 million in total for Hillsborough County for this school year. The entire FEFP, that's the entire budget, that's all the categoricals, all the things that have to go to materials and supplies, only increased by 37 million. So we're proud that we were able to actually do more than what was allocated for salaries for all employees, not just teachers. And I want to be clear that when we talk about raises, in Hillsborough, we're very clear that a step increase is related to your years of service. And the school board made it very clear this year at the table that they don't consider that automatic each year. And we know that's true because we had to go to impasse 2 years ago or 3 years ago just to get the step. So when the state sets their budget, they don't consider the step as something that is separate. It's all together. So that 10.5 million had to pay for the raises to base pay and the step because other districts don't have traditional step schedules, and legislators, when they're setting the budget, don't consider that. And again, the $40 million package does not include what we're already doing for transformation pay, the schools of need, and the millage payments. And we do know that the school board ended up reporting an ending fund balance of just under $300 million, and that's their combined restricted and unrestricted. That's money that we can negotiate with for, non-recurring payments. Yet they are projecting a decline due to serious enrollment concerns. We know that the last we've heard, the district is at a 7,000 student loss, and that equates to money. So we'll be watching and analyzing those monthly budget reports for this school year as we approach negotiations in the spring for the 26-27 year. And I said this at the Rep Council, and I think it's really important when we talk about what union power is. A lot of people think that, oh, just because we can't strike in Florida, we have no power. But the only reason to strike in places where it is legal is because of leverage, and that's the impact of members. And there are so many things that are more powerful than a strike. And the district knows when we're sitting at less than 50% or just barely 50% in our membership. They see that through our collective action. And for our bargaining team to have power at the table, to be fully powered with leverage, we have to have more members. And so that funding from Tallahassee also has to change. And that's also done through leverage and power and education. And you see it every week in our newsletter, but we have what is our grassroots education advocacy team, our great team, which works laser focused on this kind of work. And that's building relationships and educating our lawmakers here locally. Doesn't matter, it's across the aisle. We work with all of our lawmakers, and that's what really has to change. So before we kind of get into summary, I don't know if there's anything else before we get into Q&A that our officers wanted to summarize.
Hey everyone. Hey, sorry, I was trying to answer some questions as we're getting here, but I think that you really hit everything that, especially on this slide, that truly we do everything we can to get every dollar from this district for everyone, but we remain 50th in the nation for average teacher pay. And we can't negotiate us to 49 or 25 or anything in between. Working together, we have a plan in-house to talk to always school board members, local lawmakers, and Tallahassee on making them understand and see what life is like for all of you in those classrooms that are super full, and for the amount of money that you're making. So that's one of the ways that we're helping locally. We're dealing with Republicans, Democrats, any lawmakers that want to talk to us about what's happening. And Val does a really good job of communicating with them and making it more real for them than ever before, with trying to make them understand the issues that we have in our schools. So that's the one thing I would like to say, that we're going to continue to fight. Numbers are important, and the work that you guys are doing as members at your site really helps boost it and put pressure where pressure is needed.
Yeah.
I like
So
to
just,
add as well. Can you guys hear me?
yes, go ahead,
Okay.
Regina.
I like to add as well and thank Val as well that for our ESPs, because when they're thinking about funding in the legislative,
Mhm.
um, we all need to join Val on the great team so that we can push forward a bigger effort, and so that the state legislators actually recognize us and start including us in in funding when it comes to pay. So that's just my little tit tap in to join the great team.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Thanks, you guys. I didn't expect that, but coincidentally, there is a great meeting this Thursday, 5:30 over Zoom. So if you check your newsletter, there is a link to register for that Zoom, and we can talk about how we're going to make those plans together.
Cool. So just in summary, just mark your calendars. Ratification will open tomorrow at noon. You'll get an email. If for some reason something comes up and you're not seeing your invitation to open your ballot through your email, call our office. Sherry Gunn is amazing. She will help get that to you directly if something's going on. So that opens tomorrow and it runs through the 26th. So there's a full 10 days. So, make sure you're fully informed, send us questions. And then the board is meeting on September 30th, which is after ratification, which it requires a board approval. And then, of course, our rep council meetings. So at this point, we will go ahead and open it up for questions.